Can you hear me over there?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Town Council meeting for January 17th. If you will please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you could remain standing for a moment of silence, we would like to recognize State Representative Q. Williams, as well as Weathersfield Town Councilor Mike Hurley. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So, is my microphone working? I feel like it's not. Does it sound like it's working?
Yeah, I believe it is.
Okay.
Yep.
Now it is. So before we get started, two things. We're going to do our UROC presentations, and also because it's a new year and because we have a number of things on the agenda tonight that are celebratory in nature, I have baked. So you need to go over there and take something either now or before you leave, and don't embarrass me by leaving the trays full. So I will leave it at that. So I'm going to come down there now, and I think we have a microphone.
Before you go, Madam Mayor, could I make a motion to move the item B under old business up to item 3A under public comment?
Okay.
Joseph P. Graham.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
There's one in the chair.
Okay, so, we typically do our UROC awards quarterly, and they've been a little staggered over the winter months for a variety of reasons, but we have two this evening that we'd like to present, and the first one is for our library director, Mary Hogan, so I'm going to call Mary up. So I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. In the 2 years that we have been doing this, I have never received more nominations and more accolades for a single person than I have for Mary Hogan. So you are our winner in that regard, absolutely. Well, congratulations. So I want to read to you very quickly what came in, a little bit of it. And it said, I've had the pleasure of working for Mary for 7 years and recognize true dedication, passion, vision, and kindness in her. She is truly an amazing leader and a huge asset to the town. I can think of countless ways that Mary tirelessly and passionately serves her community. She is responsible for the library's reputation of providing excellent customer service and is a huge reason why patrons from other towns flock to our welcoming space. Our staffer compares her stamina to that of a Navy SEAL in that she never stops. Her ambition, integrity, and work ethic are only rivaled by her kindness and empathy. With a very humble leadership approach and a wealth of service experience, she enriches the lives of the customers who walk through our doors. She is well liked and respected by her staff, and she is always willing to put their personal needs first. She will be the one working during the holidays so her staff can enjoy time off. Although she has been at the library for over 20 years, she gets excited for our programs and outreach opportunities and is constantly learning new things about library service. And she will also don a costume whenever the occasion presents itself. And they gave me a photo of Mary in the gingerbread costume. I don't know if you guys remember that. And then honestly, I have pages and pages of testimony, and I'm going to send them to you. And I'm not going to read them all to you, but maybe I'll put them on social media because it's just really incredible to see how much the community loves Mary. And so, Mary, on behalf of the town of Rocky Hill, thank you so much for everything that you do. And
Really the staff.
and you rock. No. Do you want to say anything?
No, thank you very much. It really is the staff. I mean, we have a great staff, and everyone is committed to every part-timer who might work just a couple hours a week to everybody who works full-time. So, and we are very competitive against other libraries, and that we want to be the library of choice. So,
Well, you are. Thank you. Thank you, Mary. And I'm not sure, we've had a little communication problem. Is Kathy here? I don't think, no. Okay, so we're going to save Kathy's until next time.
Kathy Villano?
Yeah.
No, she's.
Okay, we are going to move then to our agenda item that we moved up from old business. Discussion, possible action, Memorial Roadway designation in honor of Chief Joseph P. Graham. And at this time, I'd like to call up Sergeant Jeff Foss-Rugen.
Mayor Murata, Town Manager Ray Carpentino, and Town Council. I want to say thank you for the discussion and vote tonight on my proposal to have Old Forge Road as a dedicated memorial highway for the late Chief Joseph Graham of the Rocky Hill Volunteer Ambulance Association. In attendance today is Chief Graham's family, his mother Madeline, his wife Vivian, his daughter, who is also a public safety dispatcher with us, Kristen, and his grandson Blake. I want to first thank Mayor Murata, our town manager, Ray Carpentino, and the entire town council for the continued support you all provide our town's first responders. Throughout the past decade, I've had the honor and privilege to serve the great residents of Rocky Hill as a police officer and have observed that the town's first responders are all supported not only from the community, but all of you sitting before me. On Friday, November 12th, 2021, Chief Joseph Graham was working in his capacity as an emergency medical technician for the Rocky Hill Volunteer Ambulance Association. Chief Graham was assigned to work at the Rocky Hill High School for a varsity high school football game. During the performance of his duties, Chief Graham suffered a medical emergency and later died at Hartford Hospital. Chief Graham's death is classified as a line of duty death. Chief Graham joined Rock Hill Volunteer Ambulance Association in 1987, served in many different capacities during his tenure, and was chief of the Ambulance Association from 2012 to 2021. Since 1990, Chief Graham was responsible for the design of the ambulances and notably spec'd out the final ambulance, which had been delivered shortly after his death. He got the color scheme from his grandson. This ambulance was later dedicated in Chief Graham's honor. During his years of dedicated service to the town of Rocky Hill, he selflessly volunteered thousands upon thousands of hours and closely worked side by side with town departments, including the Rocky Hill Fire and Police Department. Chief Graham was instrumental in the development of the association and was well respected, as his mission was towards the safety and security of the town residents we all have the honor to serve each and every day. Chief Graham was well known for the creation of Santa Express, which was an event that raised funds and toys to be donated to local needy families. Chief Graham was a fixture and a well-known person within the town of Rock Hill that would help anyone in need, no matter what time of day he was asked. Chief Graham also protected the state of Connecticut as a police officer for the Department of Motor Vehicle and Ellington Police Department. Chief Graham took his responsibility seriously and served with pride and distinction. I, among many others, are honored to not only have worked with him in a professional capacity, but also personally as a friend. Chief Graham died a hero. I would be remiss if I did not bring up the other line of duty deaths the town has suffered since its inception. The fire department suffered 3 line of duty deaths since the 1970s. Firefighter Robert Walker, firefighter Thomas Garahy, and our late friend, Captain James Lamar. All heroes. These names, including Chief Graham, should never be forgotten, and it is everybody's responsibility in this room to make sure they don't. This is why I'll be working on establishing a memorial for our heroes who make the ultimate sacrifice so we could all live within a community that is safe and secure. To the family, thank you for sharing Joe with all of us. And to Madeline, thank you for raising her boy into the man he was. At this time, I respectfully request that Old Forge Road be named in his honor and a memorial sign be placed on a roadway to alert passing motorists of his memory, which should never be forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Mayor, I wasn't, scheduled to speak tonight, but earlier today, Sergeant Foss Rugen came and found me, brought me to his office, and asked me to support him tonight. And about 10 minutes ago, he says, I want you to speak. Second time in a month, I found myself second shoe to Jeff. I normally prepare my remarks, but I want to say tonight, and I'm saying this is not only the fire chief, but also the son of a line of duty death. I know somewhat of what the family's going through. It's not easy for the family. Joe died in service of this town. I knew Joe, I knew him well. I'll be truthful, I didn't always get along with Joe, but that's because we had competing priorities in the same building, and I respect him, respect Joe to no end for his dedication to his job, to the Ambulance Association, and most importantly, to the members of that Ambulance Association. He was 100% for the members. And I would just like to put the support of the entire fire department behind this honor for Joe tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I would like to make a motion as the chair of the naming committee, in which we have sitting Councilor Mimi Thoreau on as well, that we accept the application to name the Old Forge Road as Memorial Roadway in honor of Chief Joseph P. Graham.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I imagine there are some comments. So, is there anyone who would like to we'll start over here?
I'm sorry?
Would you like to make some comments before we wrap up?
I just say that I think this honor is duly earned, and I think it's a good precedent for us to have, but he definitely deserves this honor, and I'm proud to have voted for it.
Anything to add?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different ways that you can know someone, and that, especially someone who's in the position of authority, like a chief. That can be they're working with them directly. But one of the other ways of assessing their impact is by how the folks who report into them behave when they're not around. I've had the Rock Hill Volunteer Ambulance Association come to help out my family a couple times. And you're always dealing with somebody on one of their worst days, and that's what makes the professionalism and the care of that organization so important. It might be a story that someone tells for the rest of their life, this one thing that happened to them about someone that they care about, but for that organization, it's their whole day, and it's every day that they're on those calls. And the impact that Joe had, I think, reflects on how well that organization serves our town, and that is something that is certainly not going away, and a very strong legacy that'll be passed down, and continue to save lives of loved ones, in Rocky Hill for years to come. So, again, to the family, thank you very much for sharing him with us, and hopefully this is one small thing we can do to help keep his memory going.
I will just say a few things, and I think Sergeant Ruben and Chief Gary kind of really laid it out. For me, I think knowing Chief was like a little personal, because when I started in 2019 on this council, I was first elected. I think he was one of the first people, in addition to Chief Gary, you have been very kind to me, but at this point, I would like to talk about how actually Chief Greb actually supported me and showed me how things work on the Public Safety Committee, and more importantly, on the ambulance side of things, which I had no idea how. I remember taking a tour with him, and again, like any of the volunteers here, I think when you start doing this job as a counselor, you know very little about how things are done in town government, right? You have an idea, but you don't know. And Chief Greb was he acted like a mentor to me. He always called me counselor, and I insisted he called me by my name, and he would still do that. But he was a friend, and he was a mentor. I will just say one last thing, because it's really, I would never forget this. I met Chief Greb at the game that night, and I still kind of so vivid to me. It's incredible. It's really vivid. Like everything he said, I can tell you verbatim right now. He talked to my son. My son was there. My son still remembers him. I'm not kidding. And he's a 13-year-old who does not remember anything. And really, it was a tough night. But I'm glad we are here now, celebrating his legacy. And I'm really happy, Madam Mayor, that you gave us this opportunity to speak. Actually, I was not planning like many other people. And I was thinking, what should I talk about? And the only thing I can say is he was a great friend, mentor, and a great leader, like Chris said. And I think we can all get behind that and do this for him and his legacy, what we are doing today. A very small thing for a man who was always helping people. So, thank you.
Sure. I just remember Chief Greb as having a lot of, like an optimist and a really, he had a lot of energy and just a very totally upbeat and happy disposition about the emergency management, ambulance service. And never at a loss for words. We went on a tour, and he told us about every nook and cranny of that space that he was inhabiting, and so that's how I'll remember him.
So I got to know Chief Greb during the pandemic, when the pandemic started. And we talked, I would say regularly, just about different things. And all of his, aspirations and ideas to improve the work environment and to make sure that all of his volunteers had what they needed in order to do their jobs and to study and to be prepared. And I'll tell you honestly, I was so impressed with his compassion and how much he truly loved what he was doing, and everyone within the volunteer ambulance department, and how proud he was of his family, and how much love he had for his wife, and just the entire family and children. And I want to say, to be able to drive by Old Forge Road now, and to be able to see Chief Joseph P. Graham Memorial Highway is really something incredibly special that will transcend many generations, and his spirit will stay with us now for forever. And I want to thank you, Sergeant, for initiating this project. It's definitely needed. And thank you, Chief, for your words. But I'm glad we're at this place. And, anytime something tragic or horrible happens, we always have to look for the good. And I think, Sergeant, you have shown us the good tonight. So thank you.
I got to know Chief Graham not just from being here on the council, but also volunteering through the Santa Express. And I'll kind of echo what Ed said, is we went on a 30-minute tour, was supposed to be a 30-minute tour of the ambulance that I think lasted about 2 hours.
Yes.
And that maybe 3, Karen. But I think that just goes to show his passion for what he did and how much he cared for the community, the people volunteering with him. And he'll be sorely missed, or is sorely missed. So thank you.
All right. So,
Jeff Levine?
oh, I'm so sorry. Jeff Levine is on screen. Jeff, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I don't know how much I can add to what everybody said, but I was on that same 30-minute tour that lasted 2 hours, and it was just so great to see someone who was so excited and proud of everything when it came, whether it was the facilities or the people or the equipment or the procedures. And you didn't realize how many things really go into running an ambulance service such as that. And he embraced it all and really seemed to enjoy it. It was really heartwarming to see that. So.
Thank you. Well, that will conclude this part of our ceremony. And so, do we have a expected time frame of when we might be getting the actual sign and installing?
I will find that out, but it will be sooner than later. I know the highway garage already has the metal plaque for it already, so they're ready to get this going.
Okay, so we will we'll plan a day when we can have a celebration at the site, and I think that would be fun. All right, well, thank you so much. Thank you to the family.
Thank you.
Did you want to say anything? No. Okay. I don't want to put you on the spot. Thank you, everybody. Of course. All right. Now we are going to move on to public comment. So this portion of the meeting is specifically set aside for comments from the public who are asked to limit their comments to 2 minutes. Any person interested in providing public comment but cannot attend the meeting should email their written comment to publicmeetings@rockyhillct.gov. So do we have any members from the public?
Charlie's going.
Okay. Okay, yeah, take a little more, please. You're going to state your name and, yeah.
Charlie Wisnowski, 670 Old Main Street, Rocky Hill. I've been a Rocky Hill taxpayer for 41 years. Hello, can you hear me now, Ed? Thank you. Charlie Wisnowski, 670 Old Main Street, Rocky Hill. I've been a Rocky Hill taxpayer for 41 years. I've worked with real estate developers for 50 years. Not 15, 50. In town, I've been on the Board of Ed for over 12 years dealing with budgetary issues. I've been on the Economic Development Commission for over 12 years dealing with issues of economic development. I know the value of $1 to town volunteers and to town staff members. You, the elected mayor, the elected council, have come to my house. You've sent me a lot of mail. You've called me. You've sent me emails. You said you would represent me. You would protect me. You would help me. The massive abatement of town funds demands an accurate, detailed review. The non-receipt of at least $9 million over 12 years should require a very substantial review, if not a referendum. There's some sort of level that you can't spend the money without a referendum. In my opinion, this agreement of over $9 million, the developer will not pay their fair share. This is bad for the town. Stop. Who of you is sitting there working for the town? First, tell the citizens all the truth. The town will provide services to people who live there. Yes, they won't have a lot of children. Oh, they're going to be going to work and all that sort of thing. But they're coming to the town of Rocky Hill because it's a great place to live. We have a great library, and librarian Mary's gone, but she's very special. Park and Rec is great. We just spent $11 million to add on to the Senior Center community building. I was on that committee with some of you. And it was a very, very difficult time to have to cut, not include, hope, maybe have a change order. But there are a lot of things that we do not provide on a capital basis because we didn't have that money. There is a great amount of programming. The new woman who came from West Hartford, who's running that program down there, is doing a wonderful job. It's always in use. There are things that have been added that you can't even think about, but we charge for them. For a resident to go and participate in a lot of those programs, there is a charge. Not receiving, in some years, is my calculations, and if you want to have the assessor come up here and we'll use pens and swords and so on, we can do that. But he'll have to tell me how he got his numbers, or the town former economic development coordinator, now town manager. There's an awful lot that I don't understand. I attended the economic development, the subcommittee. I was not permitted to say anything. Okay, so I'm here now. I live on Social Security. I had a big increase this year. I'm up to $22,000. My wife is a former school teacher, taught here in town for over 25 years. She gets a little over 40 grand. We pay a lot in real estate taxes. The largest expense that we have, having raised 5 children here, been on every committee you can imagine, both of us being Citizen of the Year, every damn thing you can think of, we pay our fair share. Out of that 60 grand we get, we pay $6,000 in real estate taxes. Then we also pay car taxes. So I'm going to pay what that developer is not going to pay. Park and Rec, will suffer. When you do your budgets in about 60 days, you're going to regret giving this money away. Stop. Renegotiate it. I understand you have to give something, but for 12 years, you're not going to collect a penny on 21,000 square feet of commercial space. The residential, as I understand the form that was created, the grid, which I think is wrong, for the first 7 or 9 years, they pay $63,000, no more. And if you took the mill rate that you're all going to pay, and we're all going to pay, and whoever you are out there going to pay, it increased it at 2.5%, my calculation of the mill rates from your website, the annual increase. What they're not paying grows. It grows to a lot. In 1 year, it grows to $1 million of what they're not paying. That's after the 63 is taken out. So I'm not against giving them some break. They're already getting $1.4 million from the state of Connecticut for demolition and remediation. The foundry got a tax abatement deal, but they're going to build a $1 million public park given to the town, and they're also going to provide the town with 1,200 square feet of commercial space at $1 a year. You're not getting enough out of this deal. It's too much for too long for too little. I could go on, but I apologize for beating you up, but you promised me so much. There are 20,000 other people in the town. There might be 10,000 taxpayers. I don't know. The assessor will tell you. This proposal doesn't have any increase in mill rate over the 12 years. Doesn't have a reval in it. Starts off with kind of a low number for 213 apartments in an environment when apartments are in huge demand. Once this is completed, it will be one of the largest assessed properties in the town of Rocky Hill, but it won't make the list of the largest assessed properties that's taxable. So you're creating this thing for people who will appreciate living here, but they're not paying their fair share. Help me, please.
Hi, Ed Ciccarello, 40 Riverview Road. I want to agree with Charlie on so many of the things that he said. And I certainly want to thank him for bringing clarity to me and to the public, because I think there is more to this tax abatement than the public has seen quite yet. My request to you tonight is to consider renegotiating this tax abatement. The giving away of approximately $9 million in tax revenue. Now, you might be told tonight that it's only 1.5 or thereabouts millions, but Charlie has the numbers. He's no slouch, 30 years of finance, 50. He's an old man. So I am for the Kelson Road project. I stood up here and testified for it. And I'm okay with some form of tax abatement, but I think the current proposal is just giving away too much. Mr. Belfanti has said a number of times he wants to collaborate with the town, and the resolution actually says a tax abatement is imperative for the project to be completed. So I asked the council and the developer to collaborate and renegotiate a better deal for Rocky Hill taxpayers who don't get tax abatements. The public is given $1.4 million already through grants. I'll be paying my taxes tomorrow. No abatement for us. Now, I want to address a couple of points in the actual resolution. So if you have your resolution there, in one of the whereases, it talks about the Economic Development Subcommittee recommending that the Town Council approval of the tax abatement. That's not true. The Economic Subcommittee did not recommend the Town Council approve it. If you look at the economic, and that's written in your resolution. If you look at the Economic Subcommittee action, I'm going to quote, it says, quote, Councilor Moliero made a motion to recommend sending item number 2, discussion possible action, tax abatement, to the town council for further consideration. The Economic Development Committee did not approve that tax structure. I watched the meeting. The second point in the actual resolution, at the one of the last whereases, the sentence is just not complete. So if you read the sentence, it says, whereas the town council finds a project, quote, whereas the town council finds a project proposal, Rocky Hill Gateway LLC satisfies the eligibility criteria specified in the town business incentive policy, in that the project, so you just have to finish that sentence, in that the project does what? Okay, so I would ask that you find that. It's one of the last whereases. Lastly, I want to say, I used to be plastic, but now I'm elastic. We got to be flexible, man. So I ask you, and Belfonte's got to be flexible, you know? Just because he says, I'm going to take my ball and go home, you know what? You got a lot of taxpayers. If you look at all the comments that were on Facebook, everybody that I've talked to, and I say that, they think we're crazy for giving away so much. Why? And Charlie has outlined things. So I ask you to consider renegotiating tax abatement for the citizens, taxpayers of Rock Hill. Thank you.
Thank you both. We will now move on to appointments and resignations. Councilor Duff, do you have any?
I do. We have a replacement. In my notes, I believe this is correct. It's a zoning board of appeals alternate. Andrew Miano has resigned his position, and Joe Hammond is who we've nominating to or putting forward to fill that spot. The term is. It ran from November 2021, and it runs through November 2023.
Okay, we'll accept that. Deputy Mayor, do you have any?
None.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the approval of the minutes town council meeting December 19th, 2022.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the December 19th, 2022 meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Jeff. Moving on to subcommittee reports, finance.
The Finance Subcommittee did meet on January 12th, and our next meeting is February 9th. There's one item this evening on the consent agenda, the CDBC Small City Preparation and Administration bid. And this is an award for the senior housing project in town. And basically, this is money that will come out only if we are awarded the grant. So if we are not awarded the grant, there is no payment due. So it's kind of a zero risk to the town piece. The other just note is that we will continue with our tax sale, which is tentatively scheduled for April. There's currently 12 properties on the list. There were 16. 4 have either paid or made payment terms to come off the list. In review of the financial side, overall, our collections have been favorable. Tax revenue exceeds the 3-year is ahead of our 3-year benchmark. We have been collecting all the state revenues as expected. The pilot, town road aid, ECS, municipal stabilization have all been paid and are current. Our interest collections, due to some new processes in town as well as increased interest rates, are over our budget level by $140,000. Our conveyance tax is currently at 87% of the budget, and our building permit fees are at 65% compared to 52% in the prior year. All of our expenditures are on target. The current numbers only reflect the Board of Ed through October. There's a lag in their reporting, their information. And again, our next meeting is February 9th.
Thank you. Government Ops?
Government Operations has not met since our last town council meeting.
Thank you. Public safety?
Public safety met today at 5:30, and the fire department reported responding to 70 events, accomplishing 251 hours of training, 0 firefighter injuries reported. This is kind of a year-end wrap-up report, so year-to-date, total 657 total calls. Our public safety departments really handle large volumes of calls and calls for assistance. The total number of alarms received, 9,750 alarms. So we really do handle quite a big volume. I can report that the Highway State Reimbursement Program for responding to I-91 corridor is still billing, and we are now up to $51,000 billed to the state for somewhere over 90 visits, averaging about 2 a week. So 91 makes up a large part of keeping our fire department busy.
About 20%.
20%. On top of all that, the department participates regularly, especially through the different holidays, at many different social functions, from Stuff a Truck to all kinds of local events. We have them listed out, and I think there's 20 events that they attended. The ambulance reports having 405 calls for the month, a total of 4,334 calls for the year, the year end. Fire department's running with 64 members, so they're doing well, and they have enough to respond, and they are still soliciting new members. The ambulance is operating with 63 total members. The active writing members are 39. The associate members, non-writing, are 9. Probationary members are 8 in training. 3 have medical leave, and for school leave, there are 4. They are reporting seeing an uptick in influenza A. COVID numbers are up as well, but leveling off. So is the influenza since the holidays, and those are compounded by folks with asthma that they are seeing. They are addressing, have looked into the CPR issue, which came to light during the Buffalo Bills contest, and so we do have those medical devices handy and available, but they are looking into that regarding statewide, townwide usage. The department, the ambulance, volunteer ambulance department, has been singled out to be the first Connecticut ambulance to enter into the National Emergency Medical Systems Information Program, a federal program, but administered by the state of Connecticut, and that'll start happening in the first quarter, second quarter of this year. And as we all know, we ask for lots of numbers and trends, and this will help them in developing those for the Public Safety Commission Committee. The police department reports that they're fully staffed and with only 2 openings in the dispatch. The 2022 year-to-date total calls for service up again. This has been a 5-year plus upward trend for total calls to dispatch, 43,149 calls. The police department has reviewed those and can report that just about 90% of those are calls for police action. So our police department fields a growing tremendous number of calls for service. For December, calls for service were 2,749, criminal arrests were 61, motor vehicle accidents 42, DUIs were 12, infractions issued 92, warnings issued 140. To give you some of the metrics, we think that we know that our participation in the Hartford Task Force, we don't have numbers there, but there are some good numbers that will be reported at our next meeting, and we will have those. But our participation with the Hartford Task Force and the addition of our additional patrol officers are driving down or holding at bay the stolen car, the thefts from cars, and hopefully the thefts of catalytic converters, which still kind of haunt the territory. And emergency management is attending classes and getting organized. They second the fact that the influenza flu is out there. We've had very few weather incidents to call them into action, but they are they do have masks, they do have test kits for town staff. So we have little to no restriction in our ability to respond with our safety departments due to COVID and influenza this season. The health district reported that our total number of cases for COVID is 5,156 cases. The death total now stands in total, cumulative, 157, which means we added 2 new fatalities this past holiday season and this winter season. And the next meeting of the Public Safety Committee will be February 21st at 5:30.
Thank you. Senior Liaison.
Senior Liaison, as I usually say, meets quarterly. We do have a meeting now scheduled for the quarter. So Monday, the 23rd at 5 p.m. is our next meeting.
Thank you. Land Acquisition and Farmland Preservation.
No meeting. Our next meeting is the 24th of January at 6 p.m.
Liaison to the State Representative and the State Senator.
No specific report, although I did forward to all the town councilors a request or an invite to Representative Wood's Lobby Day. I believe everybody received that.
Okay. School Liaison.
Yeah, so, Madam Mayor, I'm going to use my time to give a real shout out to one of our freshmen in high school. His name is Edan Hosley, and he is he came to me in October with a request and seek my guidance to create a model UN at the Rock Hill High School. It used to exist, I'm told, but it got dormant for the past decade. And so I talked to Edan, then I found that he was willing to go an extra mile to get what he wanted to get started. And so I asked him to first start a petition, and he did that. And I said, if you can get like 50 signatures, yeah, we can work with that. And he actually got, I was just looking at this, he got 209 signatures on that within like 3 days, okay? So at that point, I was committed, right? So I put him in touch with Steve Slattery, our vice chair at the Board of Ed, and he got everything passed and funded at the end of the year, last year. So that's great news, like within like 3 months, less than 3 months, I would say. So I want to give Edan a big shout out. I love that young people get involved and do things which they need to do to get where they want to go. And this is a great example of how we can inspire people to get involved. I know like we have some regular visitors to this council from high school, and I've always loved that. Mayor, you have loved that. So I just wanted to put this out there. If you are in high school and you want to get something done, this is the way to do it, right? And that's why I'm going to take this time and really, really give this shout out to Vedant Bhosle and everybody in high school who has taken that extra step and went that extra mile to make things better for everyone. Now, one last thing I'll say on this is there are 40 members to this club now within a month, and they're going to be in Boston in February, I think it's February 11th, to participate in the BU's, the Boston University's Model UN Conference. So a shout out to that team, and great job, Vedant Bhosle. All the power to you and all the young people out there. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And then Capital Improvements Committee.
Yep. That committee has not met since the last council meeting.
Economic Development Subcommittee.
We did meet on January 9th at 7 p.m. For the discussion of the Kelson Row abatement, which is on the agenda for this evening. Mr. Ciccarello was correct. We recommended moving it to the council. We did not make any approvals. So just for the record. And we don't have another meeting scheduled at this time.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. A, approval, CDBG, Small Cities Grant Preparation and Administration bid.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Mimi beat you.
Give you a chance.
Moving on to old business A, discussion, possible action, American Rescue Plan ARP funding options. We always look to Alan Greenspan.
I have no new items to add at this point.
Okay. Does anybody? No. Okay. Moving on to old business B, discussion, possible action. Okay, we did that, memorial. Moving on to new business A, discussion, possible action, Kelson Row Ames, request for a tax abatement. Do you want to lead us off, Mr. Town Manager?
Could I just ask, are we going to have a presentation by the developers?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah,
Yes, okay.
that's what that
Sorry.
is my first action tonight, is to introduce the owners, developers of the former Ames property, now known as Kelson Row. We have tonight speaking first is Mark Folenza.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Forlenza, and I'm representing the Belfonte companies tonight in presentation, and it'll be a brief presentation of our application for business incentives. With me tonight is Mark Franzman, also with Belfonte companies. What I'd like to do with you tonight is just three things. The first is just to make a brief presentation on the community that we're asking the tax abatement for, because I think that is the most important thing in this meeting tonight. Just to refresh everyone's memory about what we are planning to build on the former Ames site. And then I'll, again, just review quickly. The subcommittee has done that, the incentive plan that we're asking for. And then finally, just give us from our perspective the rationale about why we need this tax incentive plan. First thing, just a little background information. The Belfonte Companies is a full-service real estate development company that develops, builds, constructs, and manages, luxury rental apartments and across the tri-state area and Massachusetts. Currently in the portfolio, there's approximately 3,000 apartment homes with about 1 million square feet of commercial space. In the prior life, I was the head of Avalon Bay Communities and probably built 30 or more of communities like this across New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. So I've done this my entire life, and I'm just like this gentleman. I have many decades experience in real estate development. A lot of towns that I've worked with in New York and Connecticut, and just recently, the majority of them have been giving tax incentive plans to get certain, town, objectives completed, in their town, in the regional area. So this is not something unusual that's being done here tonight. It's quite frequent across many towns for many different reasons. So that's the first thing I wanted to sort of do with you tonight. Secondly, I just again wanted to review sort of our development plan. As everyone knows the history of you guys know the history of the Ames site better than I do. It's laid fallow, so I don't have to refresh you about that. But it's laid fallow for many decades. We've become aware of at least 2 or 3 developers that tried to develop the site, within the last 5 years. Each had failed for a number of reasons, often failing in front of Planning and Zoning because they didn't sort of meet the objectives of the Planning and Zoning Commission. We worked very hard with the town staff and the Zoning Commission to try to present something and build something that the town would be proud of, trying to create a sort of a new town center where people could live, work, and play. And we do have each of those places there. We have residential, we have retail, and we have commercial. The apartment community is about 213 apartment homes across 11 buildings. There's 2 mixed-use buildings of retail and office. That's where we sort of get the mixed use and mix the play and work and live component to this. So that was very important. And the site plan, as you could see, all the way to the right or to your left, has a number of things. The first important thing is we're trying to gentrify in Main Street. We've put buildings on that street so it becomes walkable, to sort of as a connection to this building and to this place. So people living in the community come down to the library, they come down to the town hall, and vice versa. The 2 buildings to my left, to your right, buildings 9 and 11, are mixed-use buildings with a nice big sort of community plaza, in front of those buildings. There'll be retail there. There'll be tables. Sort of again gentrifying that street to try to make a place where this 12 acres is just laid fallow. On the 2 ends of the properties, they're community pocket parks. They'll be open to the community, and same thing to the right. A lot of this working with the town staff. We did a lot of things here that a traditional apartment community or mixed-use community would not do, which is one of the reasons why we're here for some of this abatement. In addition, the demo of this building, the asbestos, the contamination in the building, the contamination underground, the $1 million traffic light that we have to put in with the road improvements, these are all excess costs, that came with this approval. That's sort of some of the rationale about why we need this tax abatement. And we're not doing it just because we want to do this. We're doing this because we really do need this financial incentive to make this development work. Lastly, the subcommittee has their report about the abatement and the time that we're asking for. But just again to review it, we ask that one, you approve the schedule that's in that subcommittee, which is 100% abatement on the commercial, and then a phase-in on the residential. Secondly, we ask that you fix the assessment for those number of years, and then lastly, in a technical matter. The community is supposed to be built within a certain period of time. The construction period for this community will be anywhere between, it'd probably be 36 months. So we asked you to waive that condition that the community has to be built within a 24-month period, because it'll take longer than 24 months. So those are the 3 requests we have here tonight. And then in summary, again, I think what we're doing here is something special in Rocky Hill. It's one of the more exciting projects that I've been involved in, in my career. This is something that I think the town needs. This is something that the town wants. I think it'll be great for Main Street, and I think it'll be a place where people can congregate on the street. I'm proud to be part of it, and we ask your support on this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. How would you like to proceed? Would you like Mr. Greenspan to talk a little bit about what that committee was doing, or do you want to talk a little bit about?
I can go through an evaluation that I presented to the subcommittee.
The memorandum?
Yes.
Okay. You have those in your packet.
Right. This is in your packet dated January 6th. Again, I don't need to repeat the background of Belfonte Companies. As you know, Belfonte Companies purchased the property under Rocky Hill Gateway LLC to redevelop this property into what was presented a few minutes ago, 213 apartments, 10% designated as affordable.
And not hear the gentleman.
213 apartments, 10% designated as affordable, 11,000 square feet of office space, and 9,959 square feet of retail with associated site improvements. During 2021, the town discussed partnering with Belfonte Companies on a DECD brownfield remediation grant in an effort to assist in redevelopment efforts. On December 12, 2021, the town council passed a resolution agreeing to partner with Belfonte Companies for the purpose of applying for a state grant, State of Connecticut DECD 2020 Municipal Brownfield Grant for the environmental remediation required for the redevelopment of 2418 Main Street. On March 3rd, 2022, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved the site plan special permit application of Belfonte Companies for a mixed-use development, again, for 213 apartments, 93 one-bedroom, 120 two-bedroom, with 10% designated as affordable apartments, 11,067 square feet of office space, 9,959 square feet of retail with associated site improvements on approximately 12.65 acres for 2418 Main Street and 1 Dividend Road in the Town Center zoning district, finding the proposal complied with the Rocky Hill zoning regulations and the Town Plan of Conservation and Development. Under the town's business incentive policy in the Connecticut General Statutes, Section 12-65B, Rocky Hill Gateway LLC is requesting a 10-year tax abatement in accordance with the table that I have attached to this memorandum on the increased assessed value of the real estate as a result of the proposed site improvements. The proposed table has a pre-construction period, and then it also specifies years 1 through 7 of 100% abatement on the increased assessed value. Year 8, 90%. Year 9, 80%. Year 10, 70%. Now, that proposal is not what is being recommended to the town council. I'll get to that recommendation in a minute. Now, to be eligible for the incentives, the project needs to meet certain criteria established by the Town of Rocky Hill Business Incentive Policy. One, that conformance to the Rocky Hill Plan of Conservation and Development. The Planning and Zoning Commission approved the development site plan permit application, validating that the project is in conformance with both the Plan of Conservation and Development and the Rocky Hill zoning regulations. Number 2, the project must increase the local tax base. The project will permanently significantly increase the tax base. We're currently receiving approximately $63,000 in taxes. It's estimated that at a minimum, the project will generate $743,000, almost $744,000 in taxes, a significant increase, and not to mention the additional $600,000 to $700,000 in building permit fees we will be receiving for the construction of the project. Number 3, the project must create and or retain jobs within the town. It's estimated that approximately 200 temporary construction jobs over a 3-year period will be added. Additionally, 9 to 12 permanent on-site jobs will be created for the residential portion of the project. and an undetermined number of jobs will be created on the commercial portion of the project, depending on who occupies the commercial space, what type of use occupies that space. Number 4, the project may utilize extraordinary investments in the infrastructure to protect the environment and reduce sprawl in the town. This project is a redevelopment project located in the town center zone. As such, it may be considered an infill project, the converse of sprawl. Extraordinary public funds by the way of a state brownfield remediation grant in the amount of $999,000 and a state bond commission grant in the amount of $500,000 have been committed to this redevelopment project. Number 5, the project must represent a long-term partnership with the town. The redevelopment project represents at a minimum a 10-year partnership between the town of Rocky Hill and the state of Connecticut and Belfonte Companies, or Rocky Hill Gateway LLC to be more exact. The infrastructure to be constructed during the coming years will last generations. So moving to the staff recommendation page. Upon staff review, it was found the proposed project is eligible for consideration under the business incentive policy, and we recommend the following tax abatement plan. To address some comments made earlier, town staff have negotiated pretty intensely over the past few weeks since we received the abatement application. And it has come to this particular recommendation. We will fix the current tax rate at $62,583 for the starting now during construction, in pre-construction periods, and maintain that $62,583 through years 1 of the abatement to year 7 until year 8, where the town will receive 20% of the increased assessed value. Year 9, the town will receive 60% of the increased value. In year 10, I'm sorry, 40%, you're right, sorry. In year 10, 50% of the increased assessed value. Just as a note, as with every abatement project the town has approved, it's always contingent upon the value of the property at the time the CO is issued, the final CO is issued for the project. To try to estimate what the mill rate will be based on the reval, and for the coming mill rate, and then 10 years out for the second reval is dicey at best, and we don't want to make that commitment now to try to determine what property values will be, on properties. As with every project we've approved with a tax abatement, it's been based on, we're looking at the increase in assessed value and what the impact will be over the course of the project. This is a long-range project. It's a long-range benefit to the town for the future. We negotiated with the property owner in good faith, because this is exactly what, at least since I've been here for 16 years, what one of the, actually the major project, the major discussion points in economic development from the commission up to the town council has been to redevelop this property, to form a basis to develop a town center, which the town does not have, to find a genesis to complete pedestrian access to the Connecticut River, to help improve and increase the value of the properties along the Silestine Highway, to bring in a broader, larger customer base for those businesses along the Silestine Highway. And also as important is to increase our percentage of affordable housing units in town, which we must do. It's a state mandate for every municipality that does not have 10% of its housing units as affordable. Some additional potential impact that this project will have, a benefit, is based on the 213 units in the area median income for Rocky Hill and for the Hartford area. To average, the one-person household area median income is around $79,000. The two-person household income, area median income is around $90,000. So for sake of an estimate, I averaged those two. So an average, people occupying one and two bedroom units, $80,000 to $84,000 of income. You take out some 22% tax rate, minus 30% of the housing costs, and the ultimate is around $46,000 of potential discretionary income per household occupying that development. You multiply that by 213 units if you're looking at 100% occupancy, which Altera and Montage are around 97% occupied at this point. And you're looking at a potential discretionary spending of approximately $9.8 million that could directly impact the Silas Deane Highway corridor and the region, the surrounding area of Rocky Hill, Cromwell, Weathersfield. So that's my take on this project, dealing with this project for 15 years. I've personally worked with 34 different developers, real estate brokers, persons interested in the property over the 15 years. And as was mentioned earlier, nothing ever gained traction. This project has been worked on by Planning and Zoning Commission and by town staff to come up with something that will represent the beginnings of a town center, working on design, working on materials that the developer did not want to really utilize because they're more expensive than what they might have used otherwise. So the whole process was really a partnership over the almost 2 years that we've worked with this particular project. And I find nothing but a benefit for this project. You can't give up something you don't have. You can't spend money that you don't have on things. The town is going to maintain whatever we're collecting now as far as tax revenue. That to give up, to say that we're giving up income is really not accurate because we don't have income. If this project doesn't get built, okay, the developer walks away, there will be another developer coming in possibly. There will be looking for a tax abatement. It may be less, it may be more, but we'll be in the same situation. How much. You need to look at this was a long-range process, 20 years getting this property redeveloped, and I think we need to look at the long-range benefit. It's not immediate. It will impact the town. Maybe not financially within the first 4 years, but people will be living there. The places will be becoming occupied that will start that activity that we've been looking for such a long time on Main Street. And starting that, increasing that discretionary income that I had mentioned. So, you have my recommendation.
Thank you. Councilor Greenspan?
I'll echo some of what Ray has said. First of all, we have a unique property at Kelson Row, the former Ames site. It's a site that has sat vacant for almost 20 years. Very little interest, as Ray echoed. A few proposals came before the town, but for various reasons, they didn't move forward. We now have a developer in place that's looking to do a large project that meets the requirements of our planner, conservation, and development. They have a track record of success with other projects in neighboring towns, most recently Cromwell. They're interested in developing a property in town, but not developing a property and turning around and selling it, but operating that property as an ongoing business for an extended period of time. Mayor Murata was very instrumental in working on the Brownfield grant with the state of Connecticut, and that's been a key component in attracting a developer. The positive is the Ames facility is now down, so we're a step forward than where we were before. The impact on the project, a couple people have commented that the impact on the schools, Ray had come up with some numbers from previous studies that they anticipate that the number of students living in the project would be apartments, not project, 15 students, and that'll be in varying ages, so it won't be 15 students, most likely in one age, so it shouldn't put a strain on our school system, just like compared to putting in a small community with each home having two children in it. As Ray mentioned, the project's going to be an upscale project. It'll tend to attract young professionals or individuals that choose to be renters by choice. These residents will have fairly solid paying jobs, which will lead to disposable income. And as Ray said, hopefully that disposable income will be spent within Rocky Hill, helping other businesses develop and grow. So part of this project could actually become our own economic stimulator. We've heard several times the property generates $62,583 in property taxes. That will continue, so we're not losing any revenue. We're not gaining any revenue in the short term. We'll continue to see that tax rate through the pre-construction phase and through the first 7 years. Then we'll receive 20%, 40%, and 50% until the abatement completely expires. Rocky Hill will receive approximately $750,000 in permits and fees. The abatement does not apply to any personal property for the commercial or retail component or any personal property of the residents. So 200 people coming in, 200 vehicles, assuming that we're still able to tax vehicles in the state of Connecticut, that will lead to additional tax dollars each year. A restaurant comes in as an example. The personal property put into the restaurant would be taxable property. It's just the real estate component that is being deferred. Just wanted to kind of dispel the rumor. We're not losing, as Ray was alluding to, we're not losing tax revenue because right now we're only collecting $62,500. We're deferring the opportunity to bill for additional tax revenue down the road, but the project will continue for the long term and continue to bring positive tax flow into the town over a longer period of time. So that's the way I kind of look at the project, not just by the dollars strictly to the abatement, to what I don't want to use the word giving up, as we're not giving up what we don't have. And along that, Ray, just one question that I didn't see. If the developer was to sell the property before the abatement period expired, what is the process there?
They would have to come back to the town council for permission. If the town council voted, they did not want that property to be sold, then the abatement is null and void.
Okay.
I do need to make those corrections that were pointed out by Mr. Ciccarello. He is correct.
Is that language about a sale in this agreement?
Item 4 of the conditions. Assignment, transfer, or sale without consent of the town council.
In the resolution.
I don't have that.
Sure I did. Or I didn't see it.
I just don't have that, that's why.
It's
Should be the last
part of the
page of the resolution. There were some numeric items at the end of the resolution.
There's a section on that the tax abatement schedule is subject to following stipulations, and it might be a good idea to, if possible, Ray, give an overview of just what those stipulations are, so that the public knows that the town's protected in this situation, but also some potential other ones.
Sure. I'll go through them. There are 6. The proposal would be subject to these following stipulations or conditions. If Rocky Hill Gateway LLC fails to comply with the payment of the taxes upon the due date, this agreement shall immediately terminate, and the full amount of the tax benefit already realized, including accrued interest, shall become due and payable. If Rocky Hill Gateway LLC is delinquent in payment on any taxes, interest on taxes, has any liens, including water, sewer, user fees that are due to the town or local utility provider, Rocky Hill Gateway LLC shall be ineligible to enter into this agreement pursuant to the Town of Rocky Hill Business Incentive Policy. This agreement entered into pursuant to this policy shall be subject to, there's a little typo, there's a space here that shouldn't be, shall not be subject to assignment, transfer, or sale without the consent of the town council. In the event this agreement is assigned, transferred, or sold without the town council's consent, then the agreement shall terminate as of the effective date of such assignment, transfer, or sale, and the full amount of the realized tax benefit, including any accrued interest that would be otherwise due to the town, shall immediately become due and payable. It should be number 4. Any request for the assignment of this agreement to a new owner or leasee of the same facility for which this original agreement was executed shall be at the sole discretion of the town council. The town council shall consider the financial capability of the proposed owner or leasee and require that all conditions of this agreement remain in effect. Failure or inability of a new owner or leasee to comply with the conditions of this agreement and this policy in general shall result in immediate termination of the agreement and the realized tax abatement, including accrued interest otherwise due to the town, shall immediately become due and payable. And in the event that the conditions of this agreement are not fulfilled with respect to capital investment, employment estimates, personal property estimates, and other provisions of the agreement, the town retains its right to recover costs incurred, including the amount of the realized tax abatement, legal expenses, or any other associated costs shall be paid by and required from Rocky Hill Gateway LLC.
Where does it talk about the 24-month expectation that Mark brought up?
That was not included because they had requested that be waived.
Okay.
It is in the other abatements we have approved because there are additions, whether single buildings to be constructed or during construction.
But should there be something in there then that says 36 months so it's not indefinite?
We can put something in there for maybe 36 or 38 months.
I'm sorry.
You want to weigh in on that?
Can you clarify that? Yeah, I'm not sure what you're referring to, the 24 and the 36.
Well, yeah, okay.
Our tax abatements in the past, as you know, construction must begin or be completed within 24 months. They've asked for a waiver of that because, it's going to be longer than that. So if we can do a 36 or a 38 month window, and if that doesn't work, then they have the right to come back and request an additional extension, subject to approval by the town council.
So it sounds like we left out the waiver, but we didn't create a new timeline or expectation on behalf of the town.
Right. And I do have a question. This might be one of the ones for the thankfully, we got a bunch of lawyers on here to help us out. But the last item is, in the event that the conditions of this agreement are not fulfilled with respect to, mentions capital investment, employment estimates, personal property estimates, all other provisions of this agreement, is the agreement specific to what we are voting on in terms of the abatement, or would that encompass the application and all the different process that's been done so far with the town that would include some of the stipulations that you mentioned and the sequencing and whatever it might be, and with wetlands and P&Z and all that stuff. Is that all captured under that agreement?
It's all captured. Their estimates. These are all cost estimates as we discussed before. But we have to look at the benefit of the project. So yes, it captures some of the employment, some of the estimates of the temporary jobs.
But if we don't have to, if we don't specifically call it out as part of the resolution to approve the abatement, we're not putting ourselves at risk. Is that?
I think. Are you saying that don't have that paragraph?
No, I'm just asking. Do we need to define things like the schedule and other things that might fall under that umbrella that we might be concerned with in order?
They might need to be incorporated into the agreement, or at least mention that all those things apply. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, just by the. I guess I'm asking whether or not the abatement agreement exists. I guess outside of holding to promises that would have otherwise been a term or condition of getting the other approvals from the other boards.
So that includes things like the amenities. Like, for example, there's a promise that there'll be 2 pocket parks. There's a proviso that there's going to be 9,000 plus square feet of retail, which will probably be a restaurant. So are those to be considered among the conditions they must fulfill as a requirement to keep the tax abatement in place?
Yes, they are, and they're included in the resolution already. We referenced the site plan that was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. In one of when we referenced the temporary jobs, we referenced the non-residential component through the whereas. This will be converted to a contract.
Okay. Yeah. And I don't like to lean too heavily on recitals. Whereas clauses. That doesn't just because they're referenced in the recitals doesn't make them necessarily a binding part of the body of the agreement.
This will be converted to an agreement, a town review by the town attorney.
Well, and presumably we're going to attach it as an exhibit, everything that we've discussed, and parenthetically say, right, incorporated herein as an exhibit.
We state that we incorporate them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we need to say that.
Yeah.
Well, any resolution, I don't know if language is there, subject to the parties entering into a contract. So we have that kind of that wiggle room at the back end. Can I raise a couple of questions, Madam Mayor? I don't know where you are.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Ray, I'm looking at the chart on page 29 of our packet. It shows the proposed tax abatement plan. This is the recommendation. So, there's reference to 2 years of pre-construction, followed by year 1. So we have pre-construction. Where is the actual construction phase embodied within this sequence?
Why don't we call that construction? Because it is construction. This is the pre-construction phase, or pre-construction phase we're in now.
Okay. So those first 2 boxes, those anticipated 2 years, which we just said may actually be 3 years, those are the construction phase, and that lock-in of the existing $62,000 and change then will be in place for what we expect to be 3 years during pre-construction and construction, and then anticipating a CO issued in 3 years for the first 7 years after that, correct? So 10 years in effect at the current figure of 62,000 and change.
One more time.
I'm just trying to pin down, I think I understand it, the number of years that we are locked in at the current tax payment of $62,583. So what we have is what's called here pre-construction, but you've confirmed that actually includes the construction period. And this shows 2 years, but we're anticipating maybe 3 years. So we have 3 years locked in at the current $62,000 during pre-construction and construction, and then the 7 years immediately following that, it's still locked in at that same figure. So a total of about 10 years from now, we're anticipating a lock-in of 10 years for the current 62,583.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Okay. So,
And that's regardless of the extension of time to construct?
well, it seems like the 3 is an estimate, so it's that floating period of construction, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, or extended beyond that. But the 7-year clock, as proposed here, doesn't even begin until the CO is issued, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we're looking at, in all likelihood, then 10 years of this lock-in at 62,583. So I have a question. Why is that 62,583 not even floating upwards with adjustments to the mill rate?
We tried to do that. We negotiated that figure. And this is what we agreed on based on what the developer was indicating to us. There was no room for that based on their pro forma. So we settled on the existing tax rate we're getting now and just holding that, because once we start escalating that, it just backs into their construction costs, is what we were told, over many different discussions and debates over trying to get this this value higher, the amount paid to the town column increased.
So this was specifically discussed then, even just the adjustments over those 10 years to this very modest, I would submit, 62,000 per year, that they objected to that even floating upward with changes to the mill rate?
Yes, they did.
Okay, I have another question. So a lot of the rationale for this request, there's references to various extraordinary costs, environmental, removing and replacing, fill and the like. And I recall a reference to a $5 million figure. Is that $5 million, does that take into account the $1.5 million of state money that has already been provided for those expenses? So in other words, is that 5 minus 1.5, meaning 3.5, or net of the 1.5? Are they estimating they'll be out of pocket $5 million for extraordinary environmental expense?
Well, they did include the 1.5 million, but maybe Mark Franzman can come up and give a quick analysis so we can,
What I like is an explanation of all of the extraordinary expenses are alluded to here. The environmental was the major part of it. There was reference to, I believe, a $1 million traffic light. So I guess I'd like to some clarity on that as well. But it seems to me that a major part of the rationale for this ask is, and I get it, that this was a very challenging site, that there are out of the ordinary expenses associated with it, that they need to be recognized. But I'd like to be satisfied that there's some connection between your ask and what those actual expenses are.
Yeah. In our initial application, we spelled some of those out. There's traffic improvements. There's one.
Can you put numbers on them, please?
Exact numbers?
As exact as you can.
I would say underground environmental around that area, traffic improvements. We have a bond estimate right now from the DOT of about $700,000 for just the traffic lights. We have about $300,000. I'm doing this off the top of my head, of environmental in that area, where I came up with $1 million. There's
you mean in connection with the traffic lights?
Yeah, it was in the same area. I kind of put them together.
And where are the traffic lights you're referring to?
There's new signals going in at the front of the site.
Okay, and that's entirely your expense?
Yes. There's new signals and striping and widening.
Okay.
The demo of that building,
Yeah, the demo of the building was $2 million. Demo and abatement of the building was $2 million.
But $1.5 million of that was paid for by the state, right?
There's been reference of $1.5 million from the state. We only can accept $999,000 from the state, which is through the Brownfield grant. there was an additional $500,000 grant that was provided for by the governor's office. But if we accepted that additional $500,000, there would have been, prevailing wages would have kicked in on the project, which would increase the cost of the project even beyond where we are today. So we're only able to use $999,000.
Okay, but that's, that 1 million, I'm going to round it off to $1 million if I may. So the $2 million demolition cost, but net of the state assistance is $1 million.
Just for the demo and abatement, that's correct.
Okay.
But those are excluding all other soft costs, or
Which we have, yeah.
which are not included in that $2 million. The $2 million is the actual payments to the contractor to remove the environmentally hazardous material and to demolish the building.
So you're referring to soft costs? You're referring to additional soft costs specific to the demolition and the environmental piece of it?
Correct. Legal fees, engineering fees, environmental engineer fees,
And what's your estimate on that?
in excess of $1 million.
So far at about $3 million. We have $1 million or so for the traffic lights, including the environmental associated with that. We have about $1 million in hard costs for demolition, and we have about $1 million in soft costs for environmental demolition.
The traffic light also includes some environmental cleanup too, aside from what he's saying.
On top of the $300,000?
They were in the million that we talked about.
No, but I understand the breakout on the traffic lights was $700,000 for the hardware, and plus $300,000 for environmental associated with that. So I use that figure of $1 million for that. Traffic lights, including that environmental. That's $1 million. $1 million hard costs for demolition, and $1 million soft costs for environmental and demolition. Do I have that right?
Approximately.
Okay, so we're at $3 million. What else do you face by way of extraordinary expenses associated with this property, aside from the $3 million we just covered?
There's a number of things. Let me
Go ahead.
We have the, you're going to ask us to put exact numbers on them, and we're not.
Nope. I'm asking for
We've
good
got the
faith.
two commu-
I'm asking for good faith estimates.
Yeah, we've got two community parks on each side of the buildings. We have.
What's your estimated cost on that?
It's really hard for me to tell you.
I need an estimate.
I don't really know. I really don't know. Because we kind of added all those numbers in the $5 million. I don't have exactly a breaking out.
Okay.
We are building the mixed-use building. The biggest cost is the materials, as Ray alluded to, that were selected at planning and zoning. They're masonry, they're stucco. This is over and above what we normally would build for an apartment community, and that's sort of where the balance is coming in. The design of the buildings, the facade, is the balance of that money. There's also money on the pocket parks, and then, of course, the retail, which is a lost leader. We're losing money on that.
Well, but we expect that'll be a restaurant, though, right? Most likely?
Yeah, but the cost of building those buildings will not be, the cost of building those buildings and what we rent them out to will end up being a loss.
The restaurant?
Well, the building itself, not the restaurant. The restaurants are in the buildings.
Right.
I'll show you.
Were you saying lost opportunity to lease that space as residential? Is that what you mean?
An actual physical economic loss.
They're all right there, Mark.
The building, again, this is an example. We have a retail, we have a three-story building here with retail underneath. This is not sort of like an inline retail store. So what we had to do is build a building. The microphone, please, for people that have to build a building that had a structural slab on top of that to create this streetscape. So we have to put a post-tension slab over here to get the clear spans in this retail, and then build the residential on top of it. That's an enormously expensive building, as opposed to just retail, where it's very inexpensive space. So this is actually a loss for us, which is included in that $5. I'll tell you, I think that $5 million is low. Now that I'm thinking about all this.
So that makes that building more expensive than the ones that are 100% residential?
Absolutely, because they're all wood. Those buildings are all wood in the back. These buildings are steel or concrete.
All right. So can you put some estimate on that piece
No,
of
I
it then?
cannot, sir.
So I hope you understand my issue.
But I'll say this: it's over $5 million. It's over the $5 million that we estimated. All those things involved.
So
now that I think about it.
Okay. I understand that. Please understand from my point of view, I have no objection in principle to the concept of working with you and recognizing the risk that you're taking here, that doing something very positive for the town.
No, I
which
understand
I have no qualm with any of that, and I respect to the extent that you're taking on extraordinary expenses that are specific to this property and specific to this approval process and the demands of the staff. I get all of that. What I'm trying to do is, I think as part of our due diligence here, is that we have to be able to draw some kind of a line, but at least quantify that to a reasonable extent, show us what those extra steps add up to.
Council, we'd love to do it, but I can't do it standing here talking to you like this.
Okay.
We'd be happy to provide. I can't do it right now in this discourse.
Fair enough. So where I'm coming from is, my inclination is I think that we're going to need more information for us to complete the process as we need to do it. I think we owe it to the taxpayers to get that additional layer of information from you to, again, show that this ask, adding up to whatever it is, it's because that it's going to be portrayed as a giveaway. All right, we're just lining the developers' pockets here, and we didn't ask the questions to be sure that wasn't the case.
Again, we'd be happy to provide. I just can't do it off the top of my head because some of the stuff was just lumped in.
And that's fair. And again, we don't expect precision here because I said good faith estimates. That's all I'm talking about. But that's something that you guys traffic in all the time. I know when you're trying to predict the future. I know that's not an exact science. But I feel, from my standpoint, sitting here tonight, that we don't have quite enough information to process this request. That's my personal take. But you have.
But I will say this.
You have my sense of what I'm looking for.
Yeah, but I will say this. It is more than a now that I'm standing here talking to you about it, it'll be more than what we said in that memo. I get it though.
and if you can document that, we'll take it into consideration. Okay.
I have some questions also. I agree with a lot of what Councilor O'Sullivan said. I don't think we have enough information at this point to make a decision tonight. If I have one question though, why was the request for the 10-year abatement made so late in the process? It just seems that we knew that there were construction costs have been rising. They've been rising for the last 2 years. We know that there were mediation issues in there. So to me, it's a very short process. I don't feel we've had the opportunity to do all of our due diligence. And I don't think the public has had an opportunity to have a dialogue with the company either. We have some people that have some expertise, maybe would have liked to ask questions. So that's probably my first question. Why was the request made so late in the process?
So we've been talking to the town informally about the abatement for a long time. The dynamics of the marketplace continue to change every day, from rising prices to interest rates. And it wasn't until a point in time when we came to the town where we were in a position that we could actually make the request as to what our lender would be comfortable with, what our investor would be comfortable with, and what we'd be comfortable with to make the project work, based upon getting a fixed price from our general contractor, who in today's marketplace has very little ability to lock in their own subcontractors on pricing. Subcontractors, because of supply chain and because of pricing demands, are not in a position to do so.
Now, do you have a drop dead date to get the financing? Do we have to make a decision tonight, or
Yes.
We have to make a decision tonight?
Yes.
Okay, I guess my understanding was from the prior speaker that you would have the opportunity to get more information to us in the future, and that we did not have to act tonight. So, which is it?
No, I think what Mark said is we obviously whatever we could get you, we'd be willing to get you. But yes, we have a rate lock from our lender that expires on next Wednesday.
A week from tomorrow?
That is correct.
So we don't have to vote tonight. We can do a special meeting if we have to. I do have some other questions. Some of them you kind of responded to, but just, again, the document itself have inaccuracies in it. On the supplemental document, paragraph 2, it says that there's 120 one-bedroom apartments and 93 two-bedroom apartments. When you look at Roman numeral 3, paragraph 4, it says 93 one-bedroom and 120 two-bedroom. So which is it? I mean, that's just, I mean, there's confusion in there. I guess that's,
It's 93 one-bedroom, 122 bed. That's what the Planning and Zoning Commission approved.
so it's 93 one-bedroom. Oh, so that's the part that's accurate. And the 10% would be 10% of the one-bedroom and 10% of the two-bedroom? So roughly 10 one-bedroom and 12?
22 units in total, correct.
Okay. Okay, in the agreement, it says they're going to 200 jobs in town, and you would endeavor to use local workers. What criteria are there? How can we determine that you haven't adequately endeavored to get local workers? Because there's repercussions if you don't. So how do we determine that? What's your process, I guess?
So we are using a general contractor who's based out of Hartford. His process is, he was our builder on our Cromwell project as well. He will bid out every subcontractor job, and he will bid that out to as many legitimate contractors that he can obtain pricing from. And I will say that from the experience of working with them and our experience of the project that we just did in Cromwell, that the lion's share of the subcontractors were from Connecticut. There were in some cases that we did use national companies with Connecticut affiliations. And most of that was based upon the ability to get supply.
So they don't have to be Rocky Hill workers, they have to be Connecticut workers.
Connecticut, but they're a Hartford company that's been doing this for generations. And they have close ties with the local community.
Okay, I didn't, they talk about, we have to ensure, or you have to comply with personal property estimates, and I didn't see, maybe I missed them, but I didn't see personal property estimates. I know it's just a motor vehicle, but do you have, that's other personal I assume.
Yeah, so.
That from the retail and the office, that.
Right, whatever excuse me, not to talk over you, whatever amenity items that we have at the, from the residential perspective. So if there's gym equipment, there'll be a pool, so it'll be pool equipment, pool furniture, office furniture, anything that would typically be included in personal property at a multifamily apartment complex would obviously be submitted and paid for, taxes would be paid for that as well. And then obviously the retail tenants, once occupied, would submit their own personal property for, if it was a restaurant, they would list their equipment and their furniture and FF&E.
So I thought for the residential that was being abated. That would be stuff that you would own, like office equipment or whatever. That's part of the abatement, I thought, or did I read that incorrectly?
No.
We did not include the
Okay.
personal property in that. No.
And do you have any, from past experience, when we might expect personal property taxes from the rental property, from the business properties, just from past, how long does it take to get 25%, 50% occupancy?
I would think that on the October 1st, 2024 grand list, that there would be a submission for personal property tax with taxes starting to be paid in July 1st of 2025. Because the first building that will be erected and completed will be our amenity space.
And that car, I think, I don't know if it was you or Ray, or said something about 200-something cars. You had an estimate of 200,000 for taxes at $625 a car. That came to 336 cars, so that would be like probably the two
Bedrooms would have two,
cars,
one
and
bedroom would
so
have one.
So it's
Correct.
about 1.5 cars per.
Correct.
So that's the correct.
Correct.
And that's based on
just past experience with parking requirements at our other apartment complexes.
An apartment complex like that, people would have cars that would be assessed at 600? So-
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Malero?
Yes, I think I've had a little bit of an advantage of sitting, the fact that sitting on the economic development meeting and reading this information for quite some time now and studying this a little bit. And not to regurgitate the town manager and Councilor Greenspan's comments, but I do agree with the recommendations that they both have articulated here. I know there are some adjustments that we may have to update on the agreements here, but I think in totality, though, if we're looking at this in the long run, I think there's a huge benefit to the town. The comment that can't give up what we don't have is, I think, it's really well seated in my head from quite some time now. And the one thing that and maybe it's something that I'm not sure if I can ask or talk about it in detail, but just looking at putting on a business hat, just understanding what the developer has to go through in the next 3 or 4 years, and understanding as a business the break even of where they have to stand as well too. So, I look at that and then look at the totality of what we're trying to do here in the long run and the advantages of what we're getting financially is, to me, it just seems obvious in my head. So, for me, I'm gonna stay with the recommendations from what I've heard at this point in time. But I do have one clarifying question though around the going back to the 10-year versus 12-year, and I think I'm wondering if we can expand upon that just one more time without spending many more hours tonight going over this in detail, but I think there's still some confusion around that, and I think maybe it's worth talking about that a little bit, in my opinion, because there's what year would the CO be distributed or signed off on, and for example, and what does it mean by the pre-construction? Is that the demolition? And I noticed that there's no abatement figures associated to it. So I just want to make sure that we have some clarification around that.
So, according to that chart, we have 2 years of construction, we call pre-construction. There is no abatement. We just fix the tax revenue at that value. Year 1 on the chart is the abatement. That's when we're abating something when the CO is issued. So that's 3 years out. So pre-construction, and probably another year we'll be getting $62,583, and then the abatement will start. So it's a 10-year abatement because we're only abating 10 years of increased assessed value. The other 2 years are just, we're fixing what we're getting currently.
Makes sense.
Ray, one quick thing. What if the construction goes into the 3rd year? Just in case.
Mark, maybe you can address that pre-construction period.
Yeah, what if your construction goes into the 3rd year? What happens?
You need to get to the party. No. Let me, Mark.
One thing that might be helpful.
In your abatement schedule, you say pre-construction, 2 years of pre-construction.
That really should be. Marky, take the microphone.
Microphone.
It's right next to you. You don't have to get up. It's right next to you on the chair.
Yeah, just use that. You can sit down. No issue. It's just for the record, actually.
Turn it on.
Yeah.
It might be helpful to you mentioned there's 11 buildings or kicking around things, 36 months period. If you could maybe give us just a general, does not need to be in full detail, but what does that next 36 months look like, and then how does that line up with the schedule?
So the building now is demoed. So we'll start on site work. It'll be probably 10 months before the clubhouse is then delivered, and then each building will sort of be delivered, 1 month or 2 months after that. The schedule itself is probably I don't know, 30-month construction schedule. That's why we sort of asked for 36, because we didn't want to go back. So I guess the construction period will be anywhere from 30 months to 40 months, something in there. And then I guess what we're asking for is for the, for the schedule to start when we get that final CO, whether it's between 30 and 40 months. I think that when we said 2 years of construction, we mean construction right now, because if all goes well, we're trying to start construction in March. So that would be the target. And then figure 10 to 12 months for the clubhouse, and then the buildings will then be delivered, after that. 1 or 2 months after that to add up to the, to add up to the 28 months, 30 months.
Okay.
Ray, I'm just going to, Councilor Levine makes a comment. I don't know if he wants to put it in there, but you're talking about waiving the 24 months, and should it be?
Is this your question, Councilor Levine? Are you not able to speak?
What's that?
Are you able to speak?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi. Actually, just one follow-up question on what was just said about the CO. Do you get a CO for each building as it's completed, or is it when the whole complex is done?
Both. There's a CO for each building, and then there's a final CO when the thing is finally turned over.
And the final one is what starts the clock as far as the abatement schedule goes?
Yes. Well, the amount is the same. So I mean, in those years, but it's when that third year picks up, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to understand if what's shown as year one in that table actually becomes the third year of construction, if assuming you need to go into that third year. If that makes sense.
I mean, I guess what we'll do just to make this easier is just call the first 2 years construction, and then the third year, the first year of stabilization, just to make it easy. Because then we're sort of 2 years of construction, even if it goes longer than, even if it goes 48 months, whatever, we'll still, that'll come off our next, 9 years or so, just to make it easier.
So can you give us an idea of when construction starts?
March 1st.
March 1st.
And then 30 months after that. So the first 2 years of that construction schedule will be at that 62, and then the next third year we'll go into that schedule as you see it. So it really is on the years, not on the construction period.
I think mathematically, is that October 1st of 2025 will be the grand list that we will be, if not complete, virtually complete with construction, which would then set that as the first year of the abatement.
But they finish in March.
Okay.
If they finish in March, you get a CO.
So I guess, just a few comments. I'll keep it brief because I can't talk very long. But, so in hearing about this, my primary concerns are very broadly, what is the town getting versus what it has been getting, and what is the town going to get versus what it could get? As I hear all the details about this, and maybe a few minor things have to be ironed out, but I think the town will be financially the same at first and then eventually better, but never at any point worse than where we are now as far as this property goes for taxes. Between the money we get as part of the agreement itself, permitting fees, resident car taxes, and like the personal private taxes on the businesses, and then of course the eventual property taxes once the abatement period is over, we'll obviously be much better off than we have been for the last 20 years, and no point worse. So those are important points for me. Just some other things. One thing we haven't really talked about, and it did come up in the zoning meetings, is my understanding that this project will fix some significant drainage issues in the surrounding areas, in the neighboring houses to this to where this development is, and I think that's an important thing to keep in mind, because I know they've had a lot of problems there from what we've been told in the stories, and I'm sure it's going to be a costly type of thing to address. So we're happy that that'll be encompassed in this project. Obviously, the increase in business and commerce in the Main Street area is important, as well as the overall larger town development plan in conjunction with what we hope to be improvements in the waterfront area, Foundry, and so forth. As others have said, the abatement money is never money we had to begin with. This area has been vacant for over 20 years. If we didn't approve something and the developer walked away, history tells us that it'll be many years before we'd ever get to the stage again, and then we'd only have to be offering an abatement all over again to whoever that developer is. I don't want to wait another 20 years to arrive at the same point again. So I think we're better off doing this than not doing it. And so I will be in favor of voting for this agreement. Thank you.
We mentioned earlier that there was the additional $500,000 that you couldn't directly accept as part of the project. Is some portion of that money, or is there a vehicle to use those funds to on other parts of the site or neighboring parts of the site? Because I think we talked about extending the Center Cemetery Green to create that more public green space. It may not be directly, coming out spent by these developers, but are we still able to apply that money toward that part of the town?
Right. That's the plan we've been working on with BL Companies to widen Center Green. Potentially eliminating that dogleg at Dividend Road and restructuring the traffic pattern, hopefully at some point. That way, the Center Green would abut up against the project, for much easier pedestrian access, one more cohesive center area, if you want to call that a center area.
So when we think about public amenities that this site will help provide, we heard about the pocket parks and some of those areas, but this will also be a public amenity that would be developed kind of in conjunction with the site.
That's our plan, yes. Our municipal side, that's what we're working on currently.
And I think it'd also be helpful if you could talk a little about the type of businesses that you've partnered with, and I guess the tenants that you work with on your other sites, both in terms of the commercial and the residential side. Who's your target, just to get on the record for the public? What are the types of renters that you usually get, and then also what types of businesses? Because we've seen a lot of other different proposals for this site, and some of them of varying quality, let's say, and some of them had the things that you would raise some red flags when you think about, not to slight the people who run these businesses, but things like vape shops and those types of stores. What types of business do you develop, you envision as the mixed use based on your track record with other developments?
I think Ray, everything Ray mentioned it a little bit in his presentation. We have for the residential component, we have a very specific a target market. It's sort of renter by choice. There are people that can afford to buy a home, but choose to rent for lifestyle considerations. They sort of are in three different market segments. The first market segment is empty nesters. People of my age who wants to sell their home and they want to downsize, they want to remain, in the community. So that's a real big market segment. The second market segment is, you heard about millennials, young professionals, people that are just sort of starting their jobs, they're getting out of grad school, they're sort of making their first entree into, leasing or buying an apartment. So they'll come in the leasing apartment in a place like Rocky Hill, close to their work, or as we've seen in Cromwell, some people, one spouse will work in Hartford, the other one will work in New Haven, and they'll sort of split the difference. So you have these young professionals that are looking for, rental housing, that they'll have for a number of years. And then the third segment is sort of people in transition, people coming through some lifestyle change. Someone who's going through the divorce, someone who's building a new house. So those are basically the three segments that we attract. Different characteristics in the segment, but psychographically probably very similar. In general, these are very affluent people who have just chosen to live in an apartment community as opposed to a home. At one point in Cromwell, this stat is maybe 6 years old, but Ray talked about median income. The average household income in Cromwell was more like $120,000 to $140,000 a year. That is probably about 6 months old. I can't imagine that it changed so much. So these are even more affluent than Ray was talking about, which means sort of their disposable income was even greater than his estimates. So that's sort of the market segment that these communities like this are targeted to. With respect to the retail, again, I view the retail as sort of an amenity for both the town and our community. So what we want to get into this retail space are spaces that will complement our community and complement the lifestyles of our residents. That's why sort of a restaurant would be ideal if we can attract a restaurant there. Again, because they're living someplace, someone who's affluent, they're working, they want to come home, they want to have a quick dinner, they might want to have a cup of coffee, they might want to, do things that accommodate their lifestyle. So we will not take a lease from anyone. We're going to take a lease that sort of complements the lifestyle that we're trying to create in this mixed-use community. So that's kind of the tenets. Again, I view it a little different. I view it as we're building a clubhouse and we're building this retail as an amenity to our residents. So the retail has to be good for both the town and both our residents. So that's how kind of we view it.
And then in terms of your company, as I understand it, we mentioned in his past meeting that you have a track record of owning and operating. So could you talk about what your timeline looks like for having your company involved in that site, hands-on?
Shit, Mark, you're probably better off than since Mark, he's in charge of the operations, so it's better off.
So as a company that's been in business for 4 decades, as Mark mentioned up front, we own close to 1 million square feet of commercial and retail space throughout the state of Connecticut. We live and own and manage 120,000 square foot office building in Hamden, Connecticut. And we treat it more like an apartment complex rather than a commercial building, which I think is why it's virtually 100% occupied, where the commercial space throughout the state of Connecticut is probably more like 20% vacancy. So, we also, which wasn't mentioned, but I will mention because I think it's important, is we own over 100 employees in the state of Connecticut as a management company. We own, develop, and self-manage all of our own assets. And so our reputation and our role in a developer and owner and manager are critical to the success of our company.
And just another note, and please take this as positive feedback. But I think this is a scenario where too much is given, much is required, and we understand we want to be partners with you, and potentially we might work on other projects down the road. Who knows? I do think a PowerPoint would help us a little bit out here, and just help us kind of guide through some of the conversation that we've had, help the public as well. Or just a little bit maybe more in the presentation. I'm sure you've done some of those materials for planning and zoning for some other ones, but here in the final stage, that would have helped get some of the core information out that we were looking to get out to the public. And I'm not sure, I wasn't part of the negotiations in terms of the payment schedule, but it would have been really easy to say to the town, because we want to be good partners with your organization, but also we owe a responsibility, or taxpayers have a good deal. Would have been easy to say, well, actually, they're paying us the current rate plus 5%. That might have been $3,000 off the $60,000. It makes it a lot easier to sell the deal that way. But just things in the future, if we do continue to work together, might help this process go a little bit potentially easier.
Thank you.
So, well.
Do you want to say anything? Do you have comments or
I
no
just wanted
comments?
to I'm just looking at 3 things right now. I'm trying to simplify this for me as much as possible to make a decision. There are a lot of moving parts to this. One quick question, Ray, before I do my piece is, so we are just voting today on the abatement schedule, right? Essentially, again, more or less, right? We are not. The contract is going to be still ironed out by the lawyers and whatever, right? I mean, that's my understanding. I mean, this is subject to a contract. There is a contract which needs to be signed here, right?
Right. The town council, our town attorney will put together a formal agreement to be executed and filed in the land records.
Right.
That will incorporate most of the language in the draft resolution, in the stipulations, and any other conditions that we talk about that you want within that document.
Yeah, okay. No, thank you. So in my view, like, I look at things as like, what is the baseline, right? What is the baseline today? For me, the baseline is if there is no project and we leave everything as is, right? We are gonna basically get 751,000, right? 751, give or take, right? If we approve this project, right, with all the abatements, everything, all the stuff we talked about very, very thoroughly, everybody made really, really good points. We are going to get $1.38 million in tax revenue. That's my estimate. And correct me if I'm wrong. Essentially, at the end of the day, right? And this is minus the fees and everything else, like the secondary, receipts to the town, right? So we are looking at 1.38 million over the abatement period, right? As opposed to 751,000, essentially, if we leave everything as is today, right? So now the question is like, does that sound like a good deal? Can we get something better? Maybe we can, but we haven't gotten that in 20 years, right? So the question is really for me is like, what is the opportunity cost for this if we don't do this, right? Now, can we go back and talk about another $1 million, another $100,000, another $200,000? How far are we on this? That's the question, right? So I'm just thinking baseline versus what is in front of me, right? Without those adjustments which we can potentially make, as everybody has talked about, right? The third thing on this is, which is really important to me, is the idea which Ray had talked about the $9.8 million in additional potential discretionary spending. And what goes with that in this area, which we want to build out as our, center of town, right? And those things, again, these are all estimates. I understand that. I project stuff for a living. I get it. Like, these are all estimates. You can't be, certain with these things. And you can only be certain to the extent you can be certain. I don't know, 85% confident, 90% confident, 95% confident. We can put some numbers on our confidence level on this stuff. But I'm pretty sure that we can beat the baseline. That's all I'm looking at really at this point. And can we beat the baseline with some margin? And I think we can. Again, the baseline is as is, 751 for me. And without the other two aspects, which I talked about, right? So 1, 2, and 3, that's what I'm looking at. Unless somebody can convince me that those numbers, which I just stated, like, maybe I'm off with that or something else, but that's what my understanding is. Okay, thank you.
No, there's no public comment. I think, I'm going to let you comment because then I have another comment. But I think like the whole process is just a lot of speculation, right? And so to get back to that point about quantifying, was it the $5 million in expenses, getting that identified, itemized for purposes of a special meeting? Are you now estimating that, or is that going to be actual numbers? How is that going to effectuate this decision?
You want us to answer?
Yeah, I guess that
There will be a combination of estimates and some actual numbers.
because if it's purely estimates, I think we're spinning our wheels, and I say that respectfully because I agree with your position, and we've had this discussion, all of us, about what are those actual costs, right? But at some point, I think that we have to recognize that this was thoroughly vetted by staff, that we are not experts in this scenario, which is why we have so many questions. And at some point, we do need to give considerable weight to staff recommendations. So I just want to put that out there. Do you have comments?
Yeah, I just comment was made about again, waiving the 24-month. I just wanted to clarify. Are you waiving that, or you're not? You don't need to waive it. You need to extend it, and an option to extend it further, possibly to 48 months. And my fear is it's not. I don't want it to be open-ended. Like we've had developers in town get in, get started, and then it drags on forever. And so it's just a pet peeve.
We would be waiving the 24-month requirement and
Waiving it or amending it?
and amending the 24-month requirement and allowing up to 38 months.
Yes. Up to
38.
38.
All right. I mean,
that's fine to me. But again, the abatement, the construction will be just limited to the 2 years on that schedule.
Right.
It won't push out another, 14 months.
And what was the word that you used once we get into the third year? So we renamed pre-construction construction.
Stabilization.
And then it's stabilization. Okay.
We'll call year
Okay.
3 stabilization, even
Gotcha.
though we're not stabilized completely.
Right.
Could we just, and I don't want to go backwards with it, just trying to, could we put dates to those years? Because when you have pre-construction and you're giving a date of March to put the first shovel in the ground, but the first property tax grand list date's October, I just got to have an idea of what years we're going through, because in my mind, we've shortened what we're talking about by 1 year right now.
See if we got time.
I think based on where we are in the cycle of the tax cycle, that we would establish that the taxes, that the construction period would run through, the first year of the abatement would commence on October 1st of 2025. With the first taxes being abated beginning July 1st of 2026. Because until this October 1st of 2025, we're going through the construction. And the final CO will be issued on or about October 1st of 2025.
So year 1 is October 1st, 2025.
The grand list of 20, correct.
And then, so the pre-construction is October 1st, 2023.
Starting. Correct.
Right. So
Right, taxes
tax
would
return.
stay the same, and then taxes would remain the same for the next 2 grand lists, correct.
Okay. That helps clarify the period. And that's, 'cause I know we're throwing a lot of dates, and we're calendar year and fiscal year and then tax year, and that just helps narrow it down. Okay.
I'd just make a comment in response to the last comment about getting in and getting out regarding construction. I realize that the town has probably experienced other things with other developers. I will give you a point of perspective from our Cromwell project, which was done during the pandemic. We closed on a construction loan in April of 2020. We began site work in June of 2020. We began moving residents in July of 2021 and had final CO by December of 2021. It is no way beneficial to us as a developer to extend that period. And we did a lot of creative things to ensure that we had the ability to move residents in during the period where there was an immense supply chain issue. And I think has a lot to say, not about us, but about our contractor and his subcontractors, and our desire, obviously, to move this project forward.
Deputy Mayor, did you have other comments? No. Okay. So I'm not going to reiterate what everyone said. I think I've been talking probably for a year now about, like, all of the potential benefits and the linking to the river and helping the mom and pop shops who've suffered so much through COVID. I do want to touch a little bit on the affordable housing component because, it's an issue that Connecticut is taking very seriously now. If you listen to the governor, if you listen to lawmakers, if you listen to mayors and first select people, there is a housing crisis. There's a workforce crisis. And I know that lawmakers have already gone into special session to begin to draft policies that incentivize precisely this type of development within municipalities. The project is important. Obviously, we know that, but not only is it going to help us to meet state mandates, but it's also helping us meet the goals of our POCD, and it's also helping us meet the expectations of our brand new 2022 to 2027 affordable housing plan. And that's something that we really have to keep in mind because I don't know that we can get another developer back who wants to put this type in this amount of workforce housing into a project. And we know just from listening to the governor how absolutely critical it is at this time. It's also very important to the region for a lot of reasons, which includes workforce recruitment and workforce retention. We know that those are issues here, even in Rocky Hill, specifically when we look to our volunteer first responders, our ambulance people, and our firefighters. And I can tell you, I sit on a boatload of legislative policy committees, and we have drafted recommendations, and I believe there are even some proposed bills out there now looking to help municipalities retain and recruit folks specifically and as first responders. But the foundation that's needed for all of that is affordable workforce housing, right? It's also, I think folks have already mentioned, it's important for people who are here, who are downsizing, who are on a limited income, who don't want to leave Rocky Hill, and for folks who want to come in because of its central location. It's also, I think, increasing affordable housing in terms of its importance. We can look at it in terms of equity. We've been working very hard over the past 2 years to build upon the community's needs for us to be an equitable community. We've created a new commission to that extent. We've created a sustainable Rocky Hill task force to that extent so that we are being responsive to community needs. It's also important to future economic development. And as the town manager and others have indicated, it is important to neighborhood vitality. So I think they're critical needs. I don't think that many of those needs can necessarily be quantified, but we do know that the benefit is immeasurable to bring that here for folks. And I think it's unfortunate that the Belfanti Group cannot take advantage of both investments that the governor has made for this project, but it does speak volumes that the state is so invested in this specific project. And again, it goes back to that affordable housing, and it goes back to making sure that we are able to recruit and retain the folks that we need, especially in a municipality that relies on volunteers, right? And who relies, and indeed we are known for our schools of excellence, right? And so we need those teachers. We know that teachers don't make a lot of money. We want to keep them here, and we want to keep them in our schools. And then I think finally, just the last word is, since 2019, this administration has really promised to take a different direction, right? And that direction has been to focus on long-term planning. And I think that this is one of those projects where we are really highlighting the importance of long-term planning. And I think that the Business Development Incentive Agreement, it's a long agreement, but it showcases our ability to bring in this type of necessary project, which really is a way of us investing in our community's future. So that was a lot, but I just wanted to touch on all of those bases. So thank you. So I think that there are a couple of outstanding questions maybe that we wanted to get clarified in writing. We have, if we wanted to see a list, if we wanted to update, list of expenses, if we wanted to update dates in terms of what is construction, what is whatever we're calling it. What is? Thank you. I'm thinking sustainability because I have sustainability on my mind, Mr. Ciccarello. We can call a special meeting. My concern is that today is Monday. They need to be at, today's Tuesday. Well, that's even worse. They need to be in closing Wednesday, so they need this wrapped up no later than, probably Monday to give it to their attorneys for review for Tuesday, potentially underwriting. So we're looking at a special meeting. Just thinking back, we have to notice it 2 days. So we're at tomorrow, right? So the question becomes, do we want a special meeting tomorrow? We'll do it. But knowing that I don't know, I'm not going to speak for the developer, but some of those figures that we're looking for potentially will be estimates. But it would give you also a little bit of a cleaner chart, perhaps, with dates on it. So I'm going to throw that out there for discussion.
Well, yeah, as far as estimates are concerned, we have to be careful what we mean by estimates. Estimates have to have something behind them. It can't just be this category and here's this number. There needs to be some proof behind it. Understanding it may be projections, it may be uncertain, but it has to have some type of basis in actual data and actual facts. So, the question is, can that be made available to us by tomorrow or not? Because if we can't just come back tomorrow and have a list and say environmental 1 million, basically a rehash of what we heard tonight.
Well, yeah, no, I agree. I'm presuming these are good faith estimates with something there, right? Based on a prior project or something, right?
I'm not sure why the special meeting needs to be tomorrow. It could be Thursday, maybe have the day tomorrow to get the information.
Well, it has to be noticed.
Can't be Thursday.
I think tomorrow meant noticed.
Notice tomorrow.
Notice tomorrow.
Okay, I thought you meant holding it.
For a meeting to be held on Monday, is that what we're talking about? Notice tomorrow for a meeting to be held when?
Well, you can notice it tomorrow, and you can hold the meeting Monday.
Monday. Oh, okay, so we would have time. Okay, I misunderstood. I'm sorry.
I guess
and sorry, but just presuming that everyone's schedule also.
I guess the question is also, are we getting that information to help inform the vote that we're taking, or are we getting that to come back with a revision to the abatement schedule? Because if it's informational, that might put us on a different timeline. If we're going to renegotiate, I don't know yet if we have that room or what. It's odd to do that in a public meeting, but if this is, the best and final, then, that kind of seems like what we're voting on or not.
So, in my view, it's very close to your view, Chris. The question is really, are we going to do better than what we are doing right now in terms of beating the baseline, right? If we are beating the baseline right now by, $700,000, if we come back in 2 days, are we beating that baseline by, I don't know, $1 million? If that is not happening, I don't know, then it's informational really for me, right? Is it gonna affect my vote, versus whether it's not gonna affect my vote, right? And I think that information, which is which has been asked for, I think it's important. Let me say that, right? But is it going to change materially what we have in front of us?
Well,
I think that's the question we have to answer.
And I think we have to defer to staff.
Sure.
Because they have gotten us to this point. So, and I don't mean to put you on the spot,
Well,
but you have said already that this is where we're at. So,
I mean, there's also the issue, besides the financial information, that there are some errors and things in the document, and since that document is going to form the basis of the contract, I would like to vote on the document that's accurate, so if we can have the updates and the document besides the information.
well, that we can do. We always amend that. We can do that right now.
But what I would do is defer to the applicant, because you heard what I said about this was the final. You can ask them tonight, will this change anything? I'm going to put it on them instead
Thank you.
of putting it on
Thank
me.
you. Yeah, no. I don't mean to put it on you. No.
I just, okay,
That's a
so
big
we come
burden,
back
yeah.
with different numbers. Does that mean, okay, the abatement will be less? Are you going to have a higher value? I mean, what will that do? for you?
I think it's just informational from our perspective. It's not going to change the calculation. We'd be happy to provide whatever additional informational requests that we could submit as, I guess, conditional to, the approval or clean up any amendments that need to be made. But it's not going to change the math from our perspective.
I think what Mark is saying, we're going back to sort of our planning and zoning. Oftentimes, when something is raised at a hearing that you don't have and the hearing has to be closed, what we say is we will give you the information as a condition of, an approval, and it'll go into, your files or even in the contract. I think that's what Mark's sort of alluding to, and that will satisfy, I guess, to a degree, satisfy your need for information, though it might not be perfect.
It doesn't sound like it changes anything.
Correct.
It seems like an empty gesture.
Okay, well, I don't know what else to say at this point. I mean,
Amend the resolution.
I don't know the benefit of the special meeting. It doesn't sound like there is a benefit to it if you have the corrections that are listed
Yeah, they're minor in nature.
and you have Alan's recommendation about adding the dates. You're comfortable with the stipulations, they've been read aloud. What am I missing? I think.
No.
So what do you want to take? What do you want to take a vote on whether or not we want to continue this via special session as one vote, and then see where that ends up, and then see if there's a subsequent vote as to whether we approve this tonight? Is that the fairest way to move forward?
I mean, can we take that vote? Like, I mean, if it is,
That's
I mean, is that a
question is it 10 or
procedurally if it is
25, or
correct?
is
I mean,
it the
I
date
don't have
of
a
the
problem with
CO?
that, but.
Well, I mean, it's just like asking, do we want to continue it, right?
Right, so
Do
this is
you want like a
March
motion to
1 of
postpone,
25, March 1 of 26.
to get the
So what
financial
you're saying,
information
you
and
want
to clean up the document with the understanding that we would hold a special meeting on Monday?
Knowing that it's not going to change the outcome. I mean, I
It
don't.
may change the outcome, but it may change how we vote, depending on what the information is. Like, you're asking me to vote on something that if I don't understand fully and I'd like to see that information, how am I supposed to vote on it? I want to vote, I think I owe it to the public. to-
No, I'm not questioning that.
I'm saying
Yeah, I got it, that we're all in that same
Yeah,
position.
so I would like to see the information, and as long as if Monday gives them the chance to do what they have to do, assuming it passes, but I would like to see that information.
Yeah.
So I'll make that motion to postpone.
Okay. You may.
Mr. Mayor. Is the earliest you can meet is Monday? By giving notice tomorrow?
No, I think it might be 24 hours, actually, for special notice of special meeting. Yeah, so we could meet Friday.
Because I'd be of the opinion that Monday's too late.
Okay.
Friday work?
And Monday I'm not available anyway, so I wouldn't even be here. Sorry.
I think we're, it's our own pressure, but we're under, obviously, for us to be able to move forward with the project, we're under a lot of pressure with the bank.
Yep.
And I don't think having a meeting on Monday will give us enough time to do it, so.
Friday, Chris, Friday.
During the day on Friday?
Well, I'm just wondering, because I know Chris, typically like lunchtime, you'll ask for special meetings, but do we want to do it like 8:30? Like first thing in the morning?
We'd have to do it by
I
Zoom.
can't. I have a 9 o'clock meeting I can't miss.
Okay, Mr. Levine. You're tied up in the morning?
All day Friday.
You're tied up all day Friday?
Yeah. And I'm not
Even for Zooming? Even for Zooming? You're tied up Friday for Zooming?
Yes.
All right, we lost 2.
Yeah, I could do 8:30 or something like that.
It has to be really early, like 8:30, 8:30, 9.
8:30, 8:30, 8:30?
But, I mean, I still kind of believe that if it's not going to materially change it and we are going to like just do it, as a condition, then I don't see like, big reason to like postpone it if it's not going to materially change.
Alan Greenspan, do you want to weigh in?
Well, Friday morning, unfortunately, I have meetings starting at 9 o'clock myself, and I'm out of town Monday. So that kind of, I may be able to remote in Monday late, but, yeah, I could appreciate seeing additional information. I would like to actually see the years. I do understand them now that we have them. That would be a plus. But I'm okay. I know that, Ray and Mona have gone round and round on the negotiations at this point to reach where we are. So I don't think the numbers are going to significantly change. I know all of us have tough schedules. I appreciate the additional information, but I don't know if anything changes other than a couple of corrections. And
So
Counselor
Thoreau is saying it potentially changes her vote. I don't know what your vote is, one way or the other, but potentially the vote is, well, if you don't really have 500 more, whatever it was, 5 million, then I don't know what you're thinking, so I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but potentially it affects how you vote.
It
So-
might, I don't know.
Could we do an 8 a.m. Friday?
Well, we lost 2 people, 8 a.m. on Friday. We lost Alan on Friday.
I'm okay. 9 o'clock's my first appointment.
And Jeff can do it.
9 o'clock's mine.
Jeff can do 8 o'clock. I can do 8.
I could do 8.
I can do 8.
So we're still taking a vote to still meet? Is that, we're separating the votes still?
Yeah.
Because if we're separating the votes, I think naturally it creates a critical path of making the decision, are we going to meet or not? So I'm thinking that maybe if we can take the vote, if we can meet Friday, and that'll naturally make the decision if we can or we can't at this point. That makes sense.
I just want to bring up 2 points. The year, the calendar. The abatement starts when the CO is issued, so we really can't pin down a date. It's when the CO is issued, and the second
The final CO or the first CO? Sorry.
Fine.
Final. Receiving the information, will that cause you to renegotiate this tax abatement? Can you just answer that? Yeah, will that, we get new information, some figures are changing, will that open up a renegotiation between the town and you?
No. I think we're just, my understanding is we've been asked for some additional substantiation to our best ability of some excessive and non-ordinary expenses for the project.
Okay.
All right, so Mimi made a motion. Mimi, what is your motion?
Where's Joanne?
That we postpone the meeting to get the financial information and to clean up the document with the question, with the comments and corrections that we have, with the understanding that we hold a special meeting, which I guess would be Friday morning at 8.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, so is the motion going to be about, is the motion about just having another meeting, even if it is, informational, right? The content they're going to provide is going to be informational, right? And with that understanding,
They're going to give us information, and hopefully the document will be cleaned up with the recommendations. So we're actually voting on, that document's going to form the contract, and I want to vote on what it actually says, because there's some non-sentences I think you pointed out, so that, both pieces. And that meeting would be to do the final vote on Friday.
Okay.
I wouldn't think the meeting would take that long.
And the clarification now on the years, I think we need to pin that down, because it seems to be
Yeah, that should be in the
Hey,
document.
what you just added to that just basically took us back 2 steps where I thought we moved forward a step. So we do got to pin down the years, and whether it's pre-construction or not. I'm not looking to extend the time frame. So if the CO is not issued in year 1, then year 1 is just going to be at the base rate. We're not going to change that. And we're going to go forward, and it's going to be 9 years, not 10.
That should be in the document, too,
Right.
yes.
I think we did, but what Ray just said was what took us backwards.
Well, I think the mention was that the first year of the abatement wouldn't start until the final CO was issued, but we're agreeing that whether that final CO is issued or not by October 1st of 2025, that will commence the start of the abatement.
Okay.
Because we will be at that point, whether it's final, if it's issued or not, will be substantially complete.
Right, right. And we know it's in your best interest to complete and get the.
But that should be in the
units out.
document.
Yes.
Right. We wouldn't look to extend the abatement a whole nother year because we didn't get the CO until October 2nd.
Right. Thank you.
And just, I'm not being picky, but we're talking about 10 years from now. We could all not be here. Those people could not be here, and somebody looking in that document is going to say, oh, well, we don't have to do this or that. So that's why it needs to be in the document. That's.
Okay, good.
I just want to say this. I think the default assumption should be you're a taxpayer, you pay your tax. And use a legal term, the burden of proof is on the applicant here to persuade us why we should not do that, why we should do something other than that, why they should get any type of a break. And that's what has not been demonstrated here. I mean, I feel there's been a lot of discussion about the merits of this project. And that's all well and good, and I take that as a given, but I also think it's beside the point. We're not here to debate the merits of the project. We're here, or not to decide on the merits of the project. We're here to decide on the merits of a very specific, to the dollar almost, tax abatement. And the applicant has to persuade us that there's good cause to do that. And I'm disappointed quite frankly, in the quality of the information and data that was available to be presented to us tonight to allow us to do our job. So I think that's what this motion is about giving us the time so we can probably do our jobs here, not just rubber stamping, but so that we can do what we are required to do.
Exactly.
Based on that comment, I just would go question the staff. Do they meet the requirements of the abatement program?
Yes. Yeah, that was
Thank you.
spelled out, yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Nope, sorry.
Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
John Malero, Councilor Prakash, Deputy Mayor Sharma opposed. Okay, thank you. So,
I was an aye, so I was sure.
yeah, I got you. Okay. All right, so what is that, 4-3?
So that was the motion to meet at
9.
8 o'clock on Friday morning
Friday. So we are meeting at 8 o'clock.
via Zoom.
Is that Zoom? Okay.
It's got to be, right?
It's got to be Zoom.
Well, I'll be on Zoom because I have to
Oh,
be on Zoom at
I
9.
didn't count me and I didn't count him. I keep forgetting until you chime in that you're there. I'm sorry. How did you vote, Councilor Levine? I'm sorry.
I voted in favor of the special meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I did vote in favor of 2, by the way.
Oh, I thought you voted against it.
No.
You're opposed.
And John did.
Okay, for clarification, John Malero and Ed Sharma are opposed, but the motion carries. Okay. And I presume you'll be available via Zoom. No, you won't, but he will. Okay, perfect. Thank you very, very much for your time. We appreciate it. We know that typically we are not behind the scenes. So there is probably conversations that have been had that we are just not privy to. I will not echo disappointment, but I am happy that you're here and that we were able to have this conversation and that it will continue.
Thank you for having us. Can I ask one point of clarification?
Yes.
The material should be sent to whom? To Ray? Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we'll do a condensed version of the mayor's report because it's 9:45.
Actually, might be a point of order. I was going over the notes, and last meeting we had tabled the discussion of the highway naming. Do we need to formally take it off the table to have that be official?
No, it was under old business.
It still counts?
Yes, if we tabled, I think we do.
Table goes to old business and we're good? Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Thank you. So moving on to the mayor's report, I did mention that Rocky Hill adopted its first specific affordable housing plan that covers the time period of 2022 to 2027. Municipalities are required to do this, and we will likely update it every 5 years, if not earlier. It was a very lengthy process. There were plenty of workshops with planning and zoning. There was actually an online survey with Rocky Hill residents. There was independent research by a planning consultant, lots of discussion and refinement, and then finally the affordable housing plan was created. It's a great tool for us to have as a municipality because it provides us with clear understanding of our housing index, what our goals are, where we want to be, and their intersection with the state's expectations as we continue to focus on affordable housing. It will help us expand our housing options, which we are always working on, increase choices for our residents and those looking to relocate here, and help meet the needs of households of all ages, sizes, incomes, and characteristics. I want to shift gears for a minute, excuse me, and remind everyone about the Notify Me app. It's a great way to stay in the know with all things Rocky Hill, particularly the Alert Center and the calendar and the news flash. What's really cool about Notify Me is you can get text messages, you can get emails, but you can pick the specific information that you want being delivered to you in real time. So you may be interested in COVID-19 or Parks and Rec or what the Senior Center is doing or sustainable Rocky Hill initiatives. So I want to encourage everyone to sign up for Notify Me. There are a gazillion legislative recommendations out there now that the long session has started. There are a few that I wanted to touch base on, but I think I may actually do that next time because it's so late. But they are some that, if they are passed, these bills, would have a very powerful impact, economic impact on Rocky Hill. And the town manager and I will be meeting with Representative Wood to discuss some of these policy priorities that have been outlined on the committees that I'm currently serving on, as well as some CCM and cost and CROG. And let's see what else. Speaking of our wonderful librarian, we have a gingerbread house challenge this month in January. So, in keeping with our whole sustainability theme and the fact that we just won that prestigious bronze certification, the challenge this year is to build a sustainable structure. So it can be a sustainable gingerbread house or, a building. And we're asking folks to really consider putting like solar panels and composting bins and rain barrels and all that fun stuff. You can win a $50 gift card to a local business. And the deadline to enter your gingerbread creation is towards the end of this month. You can look up that stuff on the town's website. You can also find our affordability plan on the town's website. It is a really cool read. I would encourage all of you. It's only 35 pages, but there is so much information that's very interesting pertaining to where we are with that. And I think that's it. These are all the new proposals, so we won't go through them tonight. And then on, I want to say Thursday, there is a special event at the Wethersfield Middle School where our police, I believe Wethersfield Police and another department, I don't know, potentially Newington, but don't quote me, will be speaking to families about human trafficking and the importance of really understanding what your kids are doing and seeing on their technology, on all of their devices. And I want to say that starts around 6. I'm sorry I don't have that information at my fingertips. My phone died, and I don't have it in my folder. But that is coming up at the end of this week. You can actually find the information on my social media page. And that concludes my very short, abbreviated.
Before you go to the town manager's report, we skipped new business item B.
Oh, did we?
Review of subcommittees.
Oh.
Unless you'd like to table that to the next council meeting.
What time is it? Almost 10? We can table
Okay,
that.
so I'll make a motion to table new business item B, review of subcommittees.
Second?
Yeah.
And
third.
Any discussion?
Debatable.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. All right, now we'll move on to the town manager's report.
Very condensed version, more condensed than the mayor's report. Now, you have my report. I handed that out.
Yeah.
Just quickly, deep grant update. Murphy Road, as you can see here, has received temporary authorization from DEEP to accept food waste bags and to allow the sorting at the facility, as was specified in our DEEP grant, but the final authorization is more of an administrative process, and it'll take up to several more months to receive that final authorization. And in the meantime, we've been discussing with them some potential alternatives to make the project maybe a little more efficient. Was mentioned Small Cities Grant Housing Authority. We're working with the Housing Authority right now in the initial steps to get this application moving. It's quite a long, arduous process with a lot of information that the town council will have to act on in the near future. Just a shout out, I guess, to Lieutenant Gusfeld. He was asked by KERMA to participate in their KERMA statewide law enforcement advisory board committee. There are 2 commissioners who have resigned from the Commission on Inclusion and Innovation. The commission has appointed 2 alternates to fill those 2 terms, and the town council will be required to fill the alternate positions in probably the next town council meeting.
Do we have to put the word out? Sorry to interrupt. Do we have to put the word out for people who are interested in serving that, or do they already have
They have
nations to backfill?
They have 2 candidates who they want to bring forward. Another shout out to Steve Sopelak, our Director of Community Development Services. He's been appointed to the New England chapter of the American Public Works Association Executive Board. So he's on his way to doing great things. Staff had met, I think, a week and a half ago regarding the Glastonbury sidewalk project. BL Companies has completed their preliminary study, and it looks like we can get a 5-foot sidewalk on the north side of North Road from Glastonbury Avenue to Old Main Street. I'm sorry, Old Main to Washington Street. Glastonbury Avenue is a DOT road, so we will need to work with DOT cooperatively and get their input and conform to their requirements. There is some federal grant money that's available that Steve Sopelak is looking to tap into. And finally, the Rocky Hill Fire Department has donated their 95 years of service to the town council, to the town of Rocky Hill. This will be hung in our vestibule on the second floor near the elevator. Very nice gift.
Thank you, thank you. That's awesome. All right. I know you don't want to leave, but
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.